So good to have you join us today on this edition of Business Daily. I'm Lee Ji-yoon in Seoul. Before we get started, let's first get a quick check of today's highlights. Samsung Electronics expects to see its best operating profit in 2 years, despite slowing growth in the overall industry, thanks to its flagship Galaxy S7 smartphones. Korea joins the Paris Club to become a leading creditor country nearly 2 decades after its sovereign default back in 1997. We'll sit down with an expert to talk about this. Korea's tech giant Samsung Electronics posted better than expected earnings in its guidance for the second quarter, with operating profits poised to be the highest in 9 quarters. Analysts attribute the uptick to strong sales of its flagship smartphone models released back in March. Our Kim Min-ji starts us off.
It was a surprise earnings outlook for Samsung Electronics. According to the company's earnings guidance, operating profits stood at 8.1 trillion won, or almost $7 billion during the April to June period, up more than 17% from a year ago. Sales likely rose 3% on year to over $43 billion. It's the first time in nearly 2 years that Samsung's quarterly operating profit has topped the 8 trillion won mark. The figure also beats a market consensus of about $6.4 billion.
The improved earnings can mainly be attributed to better-than-expected performance in Samsung's mobile division. It's expected to post an operating profit of about $3.7 billion. The consumer electronics arm is also forecast to have done well.
Global sales of Samsung's flagship Galaxy smartphone models are estimated at 26 million units so far, with 16 million coming in the second quarter alone. On top of that, the company's budget lineup is also expected to have contributed to the mobile division's profits. Its consumer electronics arm is forecast to post operating profit of almost $1 billion, thanks to strong sales of premium televisions, which boast better brightness and power efficiency. Samsung's chip business, another cash cow for the company, is projected to post operating profit of about $2 billion. For the second half, analysts expect Samsung's chip and display businesses to lead the gains on the back of improved prices. But its mobile division may be in for a dip. Although it is scheduled to release its new Galaxy Note, the effects may be cancelled out, as Apple is also set to launch its new iPhone in September. Kim Min-ji, Business Daily.
President Park Geun-hye emphasized on the need to develop new export items and foster new industries to revitalize the local economy and create more jobs. At a meeting aimed at boosting investment and trade, President Park said it's time for Korea to come up with innovative and appealing products to create new demand. Such a call comes amid worsening global economic sentiment following the recent Brexit referendum and growing trade protectionism worldwide. The president also stressed that businesses should explore new markets and induce investment in a preemptive manner to adapt to the fast-changing environment. And noting the fall in outbound shipments in automobiles and semiconductors, President Park said it's time for the country to revamp its traditional export engines. So Korea is doubling down on efforts to create jobs and boost a sluggish economy. After laying out measures to boost the service industry earlier this week, the government is now focusing on pushing up investment by fostering new growth engines. Our Hwang Jae has the story.
By 2030, the Muslim population worldwide is forecast to stand at more than 2 billion. With that, the related halal industry combined with the Jewish kosher market is expected to grow fast to the tune of around $9.5 trillion by the year 2020. And to cater to this burgeoning market, the Korean government has designated the halal and kosher industries, which include food and cosmetics, as promising fields that can lift the growth potential of Asia's fourth largest economy. This came as the government laid out a set of measures to fire up investment sentiment among businesses on Thursday. It pledged to foster 4 other sectors, including the pet business, virtual reality, and the sports industry. The plan includes a push for legislations targeting the pet sector, setting up a virtual reality cluster in Western Seoul, and operating institutes to analyze halal culture. Some long-stalled investment projects will get the green light as well.
The government has come up with solutions to pave the way for corporations to speed up 5 investment projects that were halted due to regulations and a lack of infrastructure.
By cutting excessive red tape, the government expects 3.6 trillion won, or roughly $3 billion worth of investments to be made across the country. Experts say the measures will most likely have a positive impact on improving business sentiment, but it's questionable whether they will lead to actual investments.
I believe there are less than 10 local companies that have the room to make investments. And most of them are large conglomerates that make these decisions based on market conditions rather than government stimulus measures and deregulation.
The analyst adds there is a silver lining for demand at home and abroad, considering the fast pickup global financial markets have shown after Britain's decision to leave the EU late last month. Hwang Jie, Business Daily.
The U.S. Federal Reserve had decided back in June that interest rates will stay on hold until the consequences of Britain's referendum became clearer. Minutes from the Fed's June meeting, which took place ahead of the Brexit vote, show that policymakers cited the looming UK referendum and a severe slowdown in hiring by U.S. employers as the reasons for freezing rates. The minutes indicated that many officials thought the sharp hiring slowdown in May could have been statistical noise, and most argued that the economy will be set for rate increases unless it's hit by a financial or economic shock. Before the Brexit vote, the Fed has signaled 2 rate hikes would be needed this year to keep the economy from overheating. The next meeting will be held on July 26th and 27th. It's no surprise that for the millions of tourists who visit Korea each year, shopping is big on their list of priorities. A recent report shows that the number of visitors who come with the main goal of shopping accounts for almost half, generating a lot of added value along the way. Our Lee Joo-young has more.
Offering everything from a sea of beauty product shops in Myeongdong to around-the-clock shopping centers in the country's largest wholesale district, Dongdaemun, Korea has become a mecca for shopaholics around the world. Nearly half of the country's foreign tourists who visited last year are said to have come with a mission to shop. According to Hyundai Research Institute, the number of these visitors identified as shopping tourists surged from roughly 2.6 million back in 2011 to 4.7 million last year. The money spent was also substantial, splurging almost $10 billion or about 2.4 times the sum in 2011. Aside from their product and service purchases, these tourists played a much bigger role in terms of the indirect impact they had on the economy as a whole. Their trips induced roughly $17 billion in production while generating a value-added effect of $7 billion. In terms of spending patterns, the Institute noted a significant change in the balance of shopping and accommodation. While an average $1,400 went to shopping per person in 2015, up from $770 4 years ago, accommodation expenses swung the opposite way. The Research Institute says the majority of shoppers came from China, making up about 64%, followed by visitors from Japan and Hong Kong. It also added that Korea needs to create more distinctive and high value-added tour packages so that more visitors can enjoy their experience to the fullest. Lee Joo-young, Business Daily.
For the second consecutive year, Korea's top internet portal Naver is the #1 company that young Koreans want to work at. Polling over 1,300 college students, local job-seeking site Incruit found 10% of the respondents chose Naver for its development potential and vision. Next on the list was CJ Cheiljedang, Amore Pacific, and Samsung Electronics. Korea's biggest tech giant was up 2 notches from last year. There are also 3 public enterprises among this year's top 10. The poll showed that young people in Korea are putting greater priority on job security these days due to the tough employment market. Korea has joined the Paris Club as the 21st member country, taking a step forward to become a creditor nation, along with other advanced countries like the US, Japan, and Germany. So what does this membership mean for Korea and its economy? Take a look.
The Paris Club is an informal group of creditor countries who look to find sustainable solutions to payment difficulties faced by debtor countries. Korea has recently become the 21st member of the Paris Club, transitioning to a creditor nation in 19 years after weathering the Asian financial crisis in the late 1990s. The membership is expected to help Seoul preempt default risks from emerging markets as its sovereign bond exposure to other countries increases. It will also allow Korea to exchange information about debtor nations with other member states, most of which are advanced economies, so they can take swift action. Amid growing concerns about a possible economic downturn in emerging markets, triggered by U.S. interest rate hike possibilities and low oil prices, there are high hopes that the Paris Club membership will help raise Korea's status to new heights in the global economy.
And to tell us more about this, we have Professor Kim Se-won from Ewha Women's University joining us in the studio today. So good to see you, Professor.
Pleasure to be here.
So since its first meeting back in 1956, what role has the Paris Club played in the global economy?
Well, the role of the Paris Club can be understood as the brains of implementing institutions like World Bank and the IMF. And it is an informal consultative group of 21 creditor countries. And their main business is providing coordinated and sustainable solution to difficulties of debtor countries.
Now, what are some of the requirements, though, that a country needs to meet in order to join this club?
Well, since it is an informal club, there's no formal requirements for being a member of the Paris Club. Instead, they consider the economic size and the economic power and the representativeness of the countries.
So there's no doubt that this is a very meaningful step for Korea, considering that it has become the first emerging economy to join this Paris Club, right?
Right. It is very important meaning. It has a very important meaning to the history of the Paris Club because Korea is the first country that debtor country became a creditor country. And in addition to that, in Western countries, there is a word like every important decision is made at cocktail party. That means in informal party, they decide almost everything. So Korea became a part of that membership.
Now let's talk more about net external assets, or the country's external assets minus its debt. Where does Korea stand on this front?
Well, according to Bank of Korea, the net credit of this Korea, which is the gap between net credit and debt, is about $322 billion as the end of the 2015. And the problem is most of the foreign credit is focused on emerging markets. For example, when we export nuclear reactors, we provide the loans, which is Korea's international credit. So it is very important to participate in emerging markets risk control.
Now, Korea's government debt is also rising. So can you tell us more about this?
Well, Korea's government debt is accumulating very quickly. The size of the debt exceeded 600 trillion won last year, and it is keep on increasing. And Korean government has many plans to increase government expenditures because they want to stimulate the economy in many different ways. And the size of Korean government debt is about the 40% against the GDP, but that is not large compared to other OECD member countries. US debt size is about 120%.
Oh, wow.
And Japan is about 260%. So compared to these developed countries, the relative size of the Korean government debt is okay.
But then how would this joining of the Paris Club actually help to boost the overall Korean economy?
Well, in addition to Korean economy became the member of the Paris Club, and that means Korea has been acknowledged by major nations in terms of the economic power and representativeness. But the direct effects comes on Korea's sovereign rating. So Korea's rating is about AA level over three different rating companies of the Moody's, Fitch, and S&P. But there is small possibility that they are going to declining the rating because of many problems, structural problems in Korean economy. But we kind of secured another way to control our international credits in emerging markets. So that will have a positive impact on Korean nation's ratings.
So looking ahead, how can Korea use this membership now to, I guess, further raise the country's status in the global financial market?
Well, it is important to participate and contribute more to global society. And by doing that in the long run, we can have more export and more GDP, which is very important for the growth of the nation.
All right, so we'll definitely look forward to what this membership can bring to Korea. Thank you so much for coming in today, Professor.
Thank you very much.
And that brings us to the end. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with more business news that matters to you. Until then, goodbye.